Most people don't realize how loaded the phrase, "it meant nothing," really is. Those three words can feel colder than the betrayal itself, almost like the person is erasing what happened right in front of you. And yet, psychology shows that people don't say it randomly or casually. By the end of this, you'll understand why cheaters often use that exact phrase, what's happening inside their mind when they say it, and why hearing it hurts so deeply. More importantly, you'll be able to separate what that sentence actually means from what it sounds like. That clarity alone can change how you process betrayal, whether you're dealing with it now or trying to understand the past. When someone cheats, there is usually an immediate clash inside their mind. On one side is their self-image, the story they tell themselves about who they are. On the other side is their behavior, which clearly contradicts that story. The human brain hates this kind of inner conflict, so it looks for the fastest way to reduce it. Saying "it meant nothing" is one of the quickest ways to shrink that conflict. If the act had no meaning, then it doesn't have to say anything about who they are as a person. It becomes an event instead of a reflection of character. That mental shortcut helps them breathe again. This is where many people misunderstand the phrase. They hear it as a comment about loyalty or love, but psychologically, it's more about self-protection than honesty. The sentence is aimed inward before it's aimed at anyone else. Think about how people talk after making smaller mistakes. Someone might say, "I wasn't thinking," or "it just happened." These phrases serve the same purpose. They reduce responsibility without fully denying the action. Cheating works the same way, just on a much bigger emotional scale. The stakes are higher, so the language becomes more distancing. Meaning is removed to soften guilt. Guilt is an uncomfortable emotion because it forces a person to face the harm they caused. For many people, that emotional weight feels unbearable. So instead of sitting with guilt, the mind looks for a way to escape it. One escape route is minimizing the emotional value of what happened. If there was no emotional attachment, no deep feeling, no intention, then guilt can be reduced. "It meant nothing" becomes a shield against shame. But here's the part most people miss. Something does not need to mean something emotionally to still matter deeply. Meaning and impact are not the same. A car accident can be unintentional and still life-altering. When cheaters say "it meant nothing," they are often confusing their lack of attachment with a lack of consequence. That confusion protects them from fully seeing the damage. It does not undo the damage. Another reason this phrase appears so often has to do with how humans compartmentalize behavior. Compartmentalization is the ability to separate parts of life into mental boxes. It's how someone can be a caring parent and still make harmful choices elsewhere. When cheating happens inside a compartment, it feels disconnected from the rest of life. Inside that mental box, there is no long-term future, no emotional depth, no responsibility. From inside that box, it genuinely feels meaningless. This is why some people seem genuinely confused when their partner is devastated. In their internal experience, the cheating existed in isolation. They struggle to understand why something that felt small to them feels massive to someone else. Have you ever noticed how people can describe the same event? One person says it ruined everything. The other says it was a mistake. Both are speaking from their own emotional reality. That gap between realities is where so much pain lives, and it widens when the phrase "it meant nothing" is used without empathy. There is also a strong fear-based reason behind those words. For many cheaters, admitting meaning feels dangerous. If it meant something, then it threatens the primary relationship. It suggests emotional displacement. So the phrase becomes reassurance, not explanation. It's an attempt to say, "you are still the most important one." Whether or not that reassurance is enough is another story. This is where a quiet contradiction appears. If it truly meant nothing, then why risk everything for it? The human mind avoids answering that question directly. It's easier to repeat the phrase than confront the deeper why. Often the real driver isn't love or connection, but validation. Being desired, noticed, or admired can feel intoxicating, especially during periods of insecurity. Validation doesn't always feel meaningful, but it can still be powerful. Think about social media. A like from a stranger might mean nothing emotionally, yet people still chase it. The behavior isn't about meaning, it's about feeling something. Cheating can operate the same way. The act becomes a way to escape boredom, numbness, or self-doubt. When the feeling fades, the person labels the entire experience as meaningless. But the absence of meaning afterward doesn't erase the motivation in the moment. That's an important distinction many people never articulate. Here's a question worth sitting with. If someone truly felt secure, fulfilled, and grounded, would nothing have been tempting enough to risk so much? The answer is rarely simple. Another layer behind this phrase is emotional avoidance. Talking about meaning requires vulnerability. It opens the door to uncomfortable truths about dissatisfaction, resentment, or unmet needs. Avoidance feels safer. It meant nothing closes the conversation instead of opening it. It's a period at the end of a sentence rather than a doorway. This can feel especially painful to the betrayed partner. They're often searching for understanding, context, or explanation. Instead, they're given a shutdown. That shutdown can feel like a second betrayal. Not only did the cheating happen, but the emotional aftermath feels dismissed. What makes this even more confusing is that the cheater may genuinely believe what they're saying. Self-deception is powerful. The mind can rewrite history if it reduces discomfort. This doesn't make the statement true in a relational sense. It only makes it psychologically convenient. There's also a subtle power dynamic in the phrase. By declaring it meaningless, the speaker controls the narrative. They decide what counts and what doesn't. The betrayed person is then placed in a difficult position. If it meant nothing, why does it hurt so much? That question can spiral into self-doubt. This is why it's important to remember that emotional pain does not need permission to exist. Impact is not determined by intent. Meaning is not decided by the person who caused the harm. Here's a surprising insight. Many cheaters say it meant nothing not because it didn't matter, but because it mattered too much in the wrong way. It exposed a weakness they don't want to face. Admitting meaning would require self-reflection. It would require acknowledging unmet needs, poor boundaries, or emotional immaturity. Avoiding meaning avoids growth. This is where real healing either begins or stalls. Growth requires honesty, not just damage control. Without that, the same patterns often repeat. If you've ever been on the receiving end of this phrase, it's natural to feel confused. You might wonder whether you're overreacting or misunderstanding something. You're not. Your pain is responding to impact, not semantics. The nervous system reacts to betrayal regardless of how it's labeled. Understanding the psychology behind the phrase doesn't excuse the behavior. It simply explains why the phrase appears so often across different people and situations. And understanding gives you back something important: perspective. Perspective allows you to stop chasing meaning where there may be none, and instead focus on what you need to heal. It shifts the question from "what did it mean" to "what do I need now?" That shift can be grounding. It puts your experience back at the center, where it belongs. As we wrap this up, here's the core truth. When cheaters say it meant nothing, they're often describing their emotional disconnect, not the reality of the harm caused. The phrase protects them from guilt more than it protects the relationship. Once you see that, the words lose some of their power. They stop being a verdict on your worth and become a window into their coping. If this explanation helped you see the situation differently, take a moment to reflect on what stood out. You're welcome to share your thoughts or experiences in the comments if you feel comfortable. And if you want more insights like this, supporting the channel helps keep these conversations going.